Welcome back. Part 3, the moment a lot of us have been waiting for. Scott Roeder, crime scene reconstruction expert. You know him well. He's been on the show a couple of times now and back for number 3 as we go into Las Vegas aliens case closed. Scott has the definitive update here when it comes to the Vegas aliens case. Scott, thanks so much for doing this. This is a UAP exclusive. You called me and asked me, hey, you want to do this together? I said, absolutely. So thank you for coming on to do this.
Yeah, you're welcome. It is timing. I'm timing this up perfectly because tomorrow airs a show that I did in Japan, in Tokyo. The show is called Incredible, and it's their longest running television show for Primetime Network. It's kind of like their version of Inside Edition meets 60 Minutes kind of thing, and they do everything from UFO phenomenon to news updates to Bigfoot, all kinds of different crazy things, right? But it's their longest running show, and so that airs tonight in Tokyo, and I discussed my report with them. So you're my first American audience, and other than the Japanese audience that gets this today.
That's amazing. So this case went international then. I mean, this is everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of there was an article written about this case. I gave an interview last time I was in Sydney, Australia, for one of their newspapers, and it's kind of like a profile piece. Not a news article. Is a little bit about my background, what I was doing in Australia, because I was there on a homicide case, and this woman happened to find out about the Las Vegas case, and that I was saying that I found evidence on it. So it was an interesting interview. So Australia's picking up on this case, even though my friend Ross Coulthart is not interested in commenting and or looking at this case. That's fine, but we do have I think a good international interest in this case. I mean, we got some, I think, publication here in the United States in print with the news media, News Nation, and Fox News Online both profiled this case. But I feel it's picking up steam, and what we're doing today by releasing the expert report that I have now authored in collaboration with my staff, and also noting some good hard work from other people that have included in the report as well. I think it's comprehensive, and it's being submitted to the University of Liverpool for peer review in the UK, as well as we're going to be submitting it to the University of Louisville in Kentucky. And I have it out currently for peer review with my colleagues in the legal community.
Wow. Those are all really big updates, Scott. So I look forward to hearing how those reviews go as well as time goes on.
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing is that it gets accepted for review. To be accepted for peer review and to be published in these kinds of things is a standard in and of itself. So, we feel very confident that what we've done will hold up to a legal standard.
Fantastic. Well, actually, I was going to ask you about that, but I'll get to that later. I'll hold on to that question because we'll get into this report. I mean, you did an entire report here.
Yeah.
When it comes to your findings, your final case findings. And that's why one of the things I find so fascinating about this case in particular is how you handled it, because you handled it like you would any other crime scene reconstruction. And it's so unique to see that when it comes to any type of UAP phenomenon, any type of UAP case, to not only see it being taken seriously like you have and like, other news outlets have, but to see it handled in such a way where you were actually able to piece together witness testimonies, raw video, like you would any other crime scene. So it's really fascinating when you look at it from that aspect.
Well, I think the compelling part, and thank you very much, and that is why I did it the way I did it, because we had live breaking contemporaneous note-taking as the event unfolded. And we chronicalized that in the report through a kind of, the whole report is basically a timeline from how we learned about the case, when we learned about it, how we documented the evidence as it came out and was verified, our work, and then ultimately the conclusion that we came to. And, listen, I've worked on, I think I say 2,000 cases, but I think the number is like 1,895. But I work about 10 new cases per month. So in my career, since I started Evidence Room in 2001, this is just another one of those cases. And I'm closing the case as far as my active involvement in it. If there's new evidence that comes out, or if people in the peer review process want to take issue with me, then there'll be a scholastic, back and forth about whether they agree or disagree. But yeah, I'm closing the case. I've come to my final conclusions. Certainly. Within my area of expertise, and as far as I'm willing to take my investigation.
Very cool. Well, let me kind of bring in here, add to the stage. If you're watching the video on YouTube after we get it up there, obviously first you're just hearing it. So we'll be as descriptive as we can. But I want to bring in here one page of your report. And again, there's a lot in here, so we're kind of going to run through it.
Sure.
As far as some of your final case findings. But in your mission statement, of course, you talk about focusing on the forensic animation and reconstruction, the mission behind all this, which I'm sure we're all familiar with at this point, and we just talked about there. But you wrote here on page 3, there's a dedicated group of experts quietly working on this case, and all findings are part of an open source investigation. There is no non-disclosure agreement in place for this case, which I think is important to note to mention. The qualifications of my team do not need to be reiterated here, as we have consistently met, and I wanted to highlight this because I want you to tell people what this is, and I might say it wrong, consistently met the Daubert standard in previous cases. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay, so what is the Daubert standard, and why is that important?
Well, the Daubert standard is the legal standard for having testimony being accepted by the federal court. And that is a standard in which an expert can be deemed an expert. Before, early in my career, and sometimes I still get Daubert challenged, a federal court judge will say, we need to voir dire this witness to inspect his knowledge, education, and training based on the area in which he offers testimony, to see if this person is credible and qualified to offer evidence in a particular matter. So the Daubert standard is is the standard set by the United States Supreme Court that qualifies somebody as an expert in a category, and then that allows that person to offer testimony under oath, and that testimony be deemed credible.
Really interesting. And of course, you have met that standard multiple times. So
yes, sir.
That's why it's important to point that out.
Yeah.
Coming back into the closed case file here is going to be an image that you and I are familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
These are images that we shared during our second interview, or second episode together, where you highlighted the still frames of these entities, whatever these were, in the backyard of the Kenmore family. We're going to get to the Kenmores specifically.
And we're going to can we make a note?
Yeah.
To the record, it is the Gomez family.
Thank you.
The Kenmore family, and I even have it in my report, but I found out recently that they are the Gomez family. The Kenmore family, that name was given out in abundance of them taking their privacy seriously. But I have been told by Angel, which I spoke with, that they want to be referred to as the Gomez family.
Thank you for saying that, because I wasn't sure when to bring that up, if we could say that.
Yeah, we can say that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not calling them the Kenmore family anymore. It's the Gomez family is their real last name.
That's right.
Let me touch on that real quick, because I know I have up the images here that we kind of spoke about during the second episode. You did speak to Angel since the last time you and I spoke.
Yes.
That was something that was kind of kept hush hush. You had told me about that off the record a couple months back. And I've been waiting to hear personally how it went, and I've been waiting to let everybody know that you did speak to Angel. So what was that like? Where are they as far as their mindset and the family? I mean, how are they doing since this?
Well, first of all, I want everybody to know he's 17 years old. Okay. So, I did not grill him on, what's going on in his life. I have learned through his attorney that they have moved. They no longer live at this property,
Oh,
and that they are happy that this case is getting the attention that it's getting, but they in no way want to appear on any public platform to comment any further on this case because they have been traumatized by what has happened to them. And
traumatized because of the coverage or because of what they saw?
no, because of what happened there, not because of the coverage. I don't think they care what anybody thinks about them. They're traumatized because of what happened to them.
So what do they say? I know we talked about, their claims. Is there anything else that we can add that they feel like happened to them that they just don't want to relive ever again?
The point is they don't want to relive it ever again. That's the point of what there's, I mean, I think they're on the record with interviews that are out there in the public sphere saying that after this event, days after, even weeks after, they were experiencing odd things in the house, similar to a haunting, where items were inexplicably floating, and it had to them a religious connotation because of the items that were floating and the manner in which they were experiencing this event,
Do they
post-event
feel
event.
this is really interesting
Yeah,
because I hadn't heard that before. They were experiencing forgive the term, maybe it's the wrong term, but it's the only one I can think of, a haunting of sorts.
yeah, yeah. I mean, um, there isn't. I mean, I think who knows about that, right? This is what he says. Now he said things prior that I can only say that in my professional opinion, in reviewing people's testimony on whether or not they're consistent and whether or not they should be considered believable or not, and you can do that based on a review of what they've said before. And what Angel has said before, based on my report, has been 100% backed up by the physical and forensic evidence. So I believe him when he says he had events similar to a haunting post event. And because of that original event and the events that happened in the days and weeks after the initial event, their family moved.
Wow.
And they no longer want to make any public statements or appear on camera talking about this case because I think, and I think your audience is well enough educated in the UFO phenomenon. I've heard your show, I've heard your other guests, of the hitchhiker effect, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that maybe that's not what they're thinking, but as I get more into the world of, these deep UFO, I don't even want to call them UFOs, these alien encounters, whatever you want to call it, there seems to be something known as the hitchhiker effect. So maybe that's what they're trying to get away from, is they feel like if they move, they can get away from these hauntings. Now, I don't know if they're still experiencing anything now. But I can tell you, that when you get into like a detailed investigation of something like this, depending on where you're coming from and what you're willing to experience, I think it can have a personal effect on you. And if you're a religious person, I think it can affect you spiritually. I think if you are tied down to a very rigid perception of the worldview, I think that this case can affect you very negatively. It can shake your view of the world and your reality. And I can honestly say I experienced some of that shaking in my own world.
Can you don't have to answer this.
I'll
I
answer
can
anything. No, listen, this is case closed, baby. You can
Yeah,
ask anything you want.
I'll go for it. And if you don't like it, I can even cut this part out.
That's
But I
fine.
know
No, go ahead.
on a personal aspect from you, what did you experience some of the things even the spiritual battles, if you will, that Angel was referring to? Did
Yeah,
I mean,
I
were
did.
you able to relate to that
I did. Yeah, I did. I had um, a struggle with, I had a spiritual struggle. Um,
while investigating?
yeah, yeah, because, you know, I mean, who said, I don't know whether it was Plato or, Marcus Aurelius, be careful of what enemy you pick to choose a fight with, right? Because, you might become that person, you might take on attributes of that thing. I'm not saying that happened to me, but, and certainly I didn't go through anything that Angel went through. But I am a Christian, in that, I believe in Jesus Christ. Uh, and this case affected me in that it brought that back up to the top of my mind,
Mm,
of what I should be mindful of, uh, how I should behave, uh, my level of confidence, my level of arrogance. Listen, I'm a bit of a personality. I really don't care about what other people think, but I let my ego get involved, I think, more than I wanted to. I dunked on some people. It's 11 hours. I might have mocked certain people, and that wasn't the thing I want to do. I don't want to be disrespectful to people that disagree with me. I want to be a loving person, a gentle person, a kind person, and I think this case brought me closer to God, in that. And it's a personal thing. Everybody has their own personal journey of their development in life, but, and I'm not saying these are demons. I don't know what these things are, but I don't think that they were there for any good reason. And it made me, seek comfort that I was comfortable with. And, it pushed me back in that direction.
really interesting. Did Angel or the Gomez, now we can say Gomez
Yeah.
family,
Yeah.
did they seek any type of priestly intervention at all?
I don't know. I don't know if they did. I know that they're people of faith, and I know that they prayed over this a lot. I know that, and this is one thing that's very interesting.
And I don't mean to harp so much on
No,
religion
no,
and
no, no.
everything.
I think this is a very interesting part.
Yeah, it's an interesting connection that I wasn't really expecting when we first got into this.
Hey, neither was I. I put out. I don't know if by the way, I want everybody out there. If I can do a shameless plug for a quick
Sure.
second, because, and I'm not doing it for ego or anything like that, guys. I'm doing that because I've got a goal in mind with regard to getting the message out on this case. And I want everybody out there, please go to Twitter and X and find me, Scott Roeder, parentheses, crime scene time machine, or Scott Roeder at crime scene, Scott Roeder at Scott Roeder CSTM. So at Scott Roeder CSTM, that means crime scene time machine. Follow me on Twitter. Please give me a follow and a like. We want to get a certain number of followers so that the people in the community, the Richard Dolans, the Lou Elizondos, the Christopher Mellons, the Jeremy Corbells, these people who tout themselves as disclosure advocates, I want them to take a look at this case and
Yeah.
not just, hey, be like Mick West and call it a raccoon and call it a day. And by the way, I've got an update on Mick West. And depending on when you air this show, I might or might not be able to tell you. It's pretty good though.
Well, I'll tell you what. How about they follow you on Twitter so they can get
Yeah,
your
follow me on Twitter for the updates. But what I wrote on Twitter last night, I said I never pursued the UFO phenomenon. I was happy with family, work, and baseball. However, once you know, you know.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, and then I put a picture of me and Pete Rose and a couple other funny pictures, cute pictures that I thought people might like to see. Let you know, hey, I'm a human being, guys.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for the UFO phenomenon. I didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on me.
Right. Well, I guess with that said, it's a really interesting kind of side road with all this, but to see how it did affect you personally, how it affected Angel and the rest of the Gomez family, it's curious and it's something worth exploring, which is why I wanted to bring it up. Kind of getting back into the case closed file here as I bring back up the pictures on our video side of things. We bring back up the photos that we talked about in the second episode. We have circled here the image that was over the fence, and I shared these on Twitter a while back, so you can always go back and see those at UA Podcast 850, of course, on Twitter, on X. And these are where you see basically the head, this giant head, what we think it is, and that's what's being made out of here, of this 8 to 10 foot tall creature. Is there any going back on this, Scott, or can we say that these photos are what we think they are?
They are. I mean, listen, keep it simple. Occam's razor. The most simple explanation is most likely real. And go back up to that. Go back up to the first image there for a second. It is what you think it is. You can clearly see a head with two eyes. You can clearly see it. Now that one's outlined. Go to the one beneath it. Raw image. Right there, guys. It's right there. It's exactly what you think it is.
Certainly does.
And it's right there.
We've had some time to reflect on these since last time we spoke.
Yeah.
Do you feel more strongly about the validity of these photos?
Oh, God, 100% more, 100% more, 1,000% more. Yeah. I feel it's more clear now than it's ever been. Listen, I would not have issued an expert report if I wasn't certain to a degree of scientific reliability. I wouldn't have issued it.
Right.
I'm putting it on the record. This is a part of history. It's on the record. Things that I've done have, been confirmed, through federal court system. I'm on the record, under oath. This is me putting my work under oath. I'm on the record. This case is on the record. Whether the UFO community debunkers or not, whether the advocates or whatever they are, whoever they are, I think they're all kind of full of shit, honestly. But it's on the record. I don't need them. I want them to look at this, but I've officially put it on the record. And whether it gets analyzed by people in my lifetime or after I'm dead, it's on the record. And people will now to know this case has been codified.
Yeah, it's a good point to make, an important point to make, really, too, because you have a reputation, too. I think people forget that, Scott. I mean, you have a very professional reputation. You have a strong reputation within the crime scene community, right?
Yeah, I'm the guy. I'm the crime scene. I mean, I joke around. I put my name tag down there as Mr. Crime Scene because, one guy was like, I don't know, he's being mean on Twitter or whatever. He's like, "Who are you, Mr. Crime Scene or something?" So just dedicated to that one hater out there. I changed my screen name to Mr. Crime Scene today. Just for him.
Crime Scene.
I mean, I am. I mean, that's what I do. I'm 54 years old now. I've been working as an evidence specialist in the field of crime and shooting scene reconstruction for 30 years.
Wow.
Okay. I started in this business when I was 25 years old. I'm now 54. I started my company in 2001. I've worked on almost 2,000 cases just working on my company, but there's 8 years prior to that where I worked for other people working on cases. So this is all I know how to do. This is all I do. Crime scenes, reconstructions, and coming to a scientific conclusion about what's real and what's not, what happened, what didn't happen. This case isn't special to me in the fact of how I approached it. I approached it like I would any other case. What are the facts? What do they say? What do they mean? And what is their conclusion?
Were you worried about the any possible stigma or blowback, Scott? I mean, when it comes to your everyday life and your job, were you worried about people blackballing you and saying we're not going to have this guy, investigate our cases anymore? Have you experienced anything like that? If you weren't worried about it?
No, I have not experienced anything like that. And if it does, I don't care. I mean, listen, I don't think anybody's gonna say if you read my report. That's why I put it out there. Read it. I'd be happy to engage. If some people might snipe from the side, but who cares? Like, listen, I played baseball for 30 years. Okay. By the way, go Guardians against the Yankees tonight,
Yeah,
depending
your
on when this
Guardians.
airs. But anyway, go Guardians.
Good luck.
But I played, high school baseball, and I played, I played amateur competitive baseball. Matter of fact, I was part of a baseball team in 2016 that won the Los Angeles men's 21 and older baseball division, the Sonics. I played center field and batted first for that team, so I've been playing baseball a long time. And when you play ball, sometimes you get people in the stands. Hey, you're a bum.
Hmm.
You don't listen to those people.
That's kind of the same thing here, I guess. Huh?
Yeah. If you're not willing to get in the batter's box and take your cuts, I don't care what you say.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And by the way, if you're okay with it, I'm going to put out this report
Yeah.
when we're done. And when this
Absolutely.
episode comes out, I'll put out the report alongside it
Absolutely.
so everybody can see what we're talking
Yeah,
about
you got to
here.
read it, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Um, you know, if you look at this case, now listen, there's some debunkers out there, and I don't want to give them too much credit right now. I might tell you the little debunker battle I had over the weekend. I gave him an offer. I offered him a deal. And his response was inexplicable.
Mm.
I'm starting to put people into two categories:
What are
liars,
those? Yeah.
stupid, or oblivious.
Liars, stupid, and oblivious.
Liars, either they're lying, or they're stupid, or they're oblivious. I feel like those are three categories. Lying is the worst category because
Yeah.
that means you know something's true, but you're not willing to admit it. Like, those are the worst people. Stupid people, you can't really blame somebody that's stupid. You can't blame them. Some people
Yeah.
just don't get it. It's fine. And then the oblivious people, those people you can blame because they're too. Maybe you can't blame them either. I think the only people you can blame are the liars.
Yeah, that's fair. No, and
Yeah.
I think you're right because
Yeah.
that's just,
Because they know better.
it's intentional.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And I think kind of getting to the report here on page 5, you talk about the crash scene itself. And I want to jump to that real quick, if you don't mind, or the supposed crash site anyway, because we talked about before when you put this in the report, this odd sound,
Yes.
right? That was kind of picked up. A mechanical oscillating sound is the term that you used in the report here on page 5. It was recorded on one of the Ring cameras, and people have spoken about this before as part of like independent evidence. And we also talk about two objects, and it's interesting when we say that because a lot of people didn't notice almost like a fall off type of object that came down from this. Now, what I want to point out is if people haven't seen these pictures or videos or anything like that before, again, I put out the report at the same time as this episode. So it's at UA Podcast 850 on X, on Twitter, where you can follow along on this report as we talk about it.
And I'm going to be releasing it at Scott Roeder,
Right.
CSTM.
Good. So multiple places there on social media, on Twitter. But one of the things that struck me when I first saw these pictures, when it came to the blue light, and I'll zoom in here a little bit just on our end for the video. Obviously, a lot of people thought at first this was some type of meteorite crashing to the ground,
Right.
Some type of blue glowing light. We've seen that
Shooting
before.
star. That's what most people thought of it as from afar.
Right.
But you'll notice that the people that were closer to the incident, the people in the greater Las Vegas, Nevada area, they didn't think of it as a shooting star. They said something fell out of the sky.
Mm. And it was, I mean, this could be seen from, what would you say, Scott, just from looking at the map, because we have a map of the crash site up here as we speak. Would you say this was, now what's interesting, I didn't know how close this was to Nellis Air Force Base. So that's intriguing.
And that, isn't it? Maybe, yeah, it's very intriguing.
I never noticed that until this very second as we look at it. So North Las Vegas, and it came east to west, crashing essentially, supposedly in Angel's backyard near Red Rock Canyon National Forest there.
Right.
How far away were people who could see this? Could this be seen a mile away, 2 miles away? Do
I
we know
mean,
how far away?
there are reports. Well, I mean, at different stages, you're going to be able to see it, right? So people reported it as far as Southern California, uh, seeing it as far away as Southern California. So,
Wow.
uh, but obviously, they're seeing it until they can't see it any longer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the closer you get to the crash site, the different it looks because the people at the crash site are catching it on its immediate descent um, before Earth.
So we know the bottom line is here, and actually I want to bring this back up because this is the picture I was talking about where we have a second object.
Yeah.
But the bottom line here is something crashed.
Yeah.
Something fell from the sky.
Or had a hard landing. I've seen hard landings before. Matter of fact, yesterday I was at the park with my dog and my girlfriend and her dog, and we went to this little park in Lakewood, Ohio called Stinchcombe, and it reminded me of a time when my kids were really little. My daughter Michaela and my sons Evan and Eric and my dog Sydney at the time, and we were walking. I was maybe 29 years old. The kids were really little, and we were up there, and it's like a plateau with a valley, and there's a hospital that has like air flights with helicopter air flights. And one time we were up there, and the helicopter came in. It was crash landing
Hmm.
on this park area, and we like jumped off the side, and it just landed really hard.
Wow.
And then an ambulance came in and got the patient, and this could just be a hard landing.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. And it's for the kind of asteroid theory, meteorite theory. Do we ever find any impact crater? I know we talked about that before, but since the last time we spoke, has there ever been any report of an impact crater of any sort from something falling from the sky?
No. No, there's no impact crater. Nobody has recovered a meteor. uh, there is evidence there's evidence that's being kept from us.
Also,
That's the only I will reissue. I'm the only way I will revise this report is if we are successful in our legal pursuit, which is now has become a legal pursuit. I am now working with a group of lawyers that are working. I can't say too much, but we're trying to get that footage from the Las Vegas Police Department. There's 33 minutes of body camera footage that they have refused to turn over. And that's body camera footage from two police officers that were in the backyard beyond the fence where the aliens were that we captured on that the Gomez family captured on film that we just talked about. So the police department previously turned down a FOIA request for the release of that body camera footage, which should be released. Like, that's a no-brainer when it comes to FOIA. You should be able to get a police department to issue. That's public knowledge. That's public information. The reason why they said they wouldn't release it is that the owners of the property, which are not the Gomez family, they were renting there and they have now moved, but the owners of the property wanted their privacy. But that's BS because we all know we've got drone footage of this that happened right. The top of there's nothing secret going on in that backyard that a person shouldn't be aware of. It's not a big deal, except if there's something on that footage that whoever they are don't want you to see. But it's certainly not the property owner. It's probably not even the Las Vegas Police Department, but somebody doesn't want you to see that footage. We are engaging in a legal maneuver to obtain that footage. That's as much as I can say right now.
understood. Is there precedent to that, Scott? I mean, in all the different cases that you've worked on, as far as crime scenes, murders, police involved shootings, whatever it might have been,
Yeah.
is there precedent that you've come across before where maybe they've been resistant in releasing body cam footage, but just flat out saying no, like we're not giving it to you? Have you experienced?
No. If they have it, they must return. I've worked on, like I said, lots of cases. If there is body camera footage, it must be turned over. It must be turned over. It must be.
Wow. And they're just saying no.
Yeah, they're just saying no. They're being very Nancy Reagan with me, and they're saying just say no. But we are going to compel them legally. I don't believe that they have a legal defense, um, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, keep us updated on it
Yeah,
for sure.
but those things take a long time. That might take years.
Sure.
So that's why I'm not waiting to. There's enough evidence to issue an opinion. If we get that footage and we get to analyze that footage and put it in the public sphere, then yeah, I'll redo my report. I'll add to it.
Since we last spoke, Scott, and you put this final report together, we're going to jump back into it here
Yeah.
in just a minute, with a few pages left still. What's one of the things that you have learned where you said to yourself, "Ooh, wow, I didn't come across this information before." Like, where do you stand now with some of the new information that you've come across yourself that may have surprised you, or maybe even solidified something that you had perceived to be the truth before?
Well, listen, I'm not. I've always been interested in the UFO alien subject, but I've never really pursued it in any kind of way. I mean, if you look at my podcast, Crime Scene Time Machine, um, my first 20 episodes were all crime scenes, and then I probably got 20 episodes on the John F. Kennedy assassination, which is one of my pet projects. I worked very closely with Dr. Cyril Weck, who just recently passed away, and he 94 years old. He basically passed the baton on to me on the John F. Kennedy case, and I actually, on my show, you can see his very last public interview before his death, where he was promoting his book, The World's Greatest Murder Mystery, The John F. Kennedy Assassination, which I think was his 10th book he published on the subject. So that was my original, interest. But somehow what I learned, not just through this case, but through investigating the UFO phenomenon, in as much as I have so far, is that there's a crossover between the John F. Kennedy assassination and the UFO file. There's a clear connection between the two, I think, what I would call tentpole events that form the very nature of the reality in which we live in, especially in the United States of America.
Really interesting. Okay. Jumping back into the report here, I mentioned earlier this fall off type of.
No, I wouldn't call this fall off. If you look at, I actually have a link to this actual camera footage. Okay, we have the full video. These are just still frames. I think in here you're going to see a link to it. Stay on that page. It's not fall off. It actually follows it.
Oh.
It comes down, and if you look, it doesn't have a tail to it, which means it's controlling its own speed. It's coming down with it. It's mirroring it. It does not fall off of it. It appears next to it and mirrors it, and it doesn't have a tail, which means it's controlling its speed. The other one's got a tail, means it's not controlling its speed. And maybe that second item is what allows that first item to have a hard landing versus a crash.
Yeah, that's something, because it really is. It's not something that's been brought up a lot with this case, is that Ring doorbell camera footage, right, where you see this bright light, the original blue bright light that everybody saw and said it was just a meteor.
Yeah.
But that second piece to it, whatever you want to call it, that's following
it's another UFO.
It must be. I mean, in the classic sense of the case, it is an unidentified flying object. So make of it what you will. Maybe it's not an alien spaceship, but it is a UFO in the actual literal terms of it. And it's a great point, and it's, again, something that hasn't been brought up too much.
Yeah. It doesn't have a tail.
And it doesn't have a tail. And do you think this is what was making that mechanical whirling sound? Was the second object?
I don't know.
We can just guess there.
I don't know. I mean, that's just a guess. I think the compelling factor is there is an oscillating mechanical sound associated with this UFO. And we now see two items, one with a tail, which demonstrates uncontrolled speed. The other one without a tail, which means it's controlling its speed. I think those are just factual observations.
It is, man. And do we have any type of indication of what the heck we're looking at there, or is this just an observation
I
that
mean,
it did happen?
Again, Occam's razor. The most simplest explanation is the correct one.
Mm, that's fair. It's just, it's funny. Sometimes these simple explanations are the ones that are hardest to believe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I got into a dust up. I think this might be a good time to talk about it.
Sure.
I got into a little bit of a dust up. Not me personally, but me and Jim Quirk over at ET Reality, great podcast. Everybody should go check out Jim Quirk at ET Reality. He's awesome. I call him the bulldog reporter of the UFO community. He's funny. His Eagles beat my Browns yesterday, but anyway. So I'll give a little shout out to Jim Quirk over there at ET Reality. We got into a dust up with a few debunkers, okay, and I think the one debunker or skeptic, what do you want to say? I think debunker is almost like a slur. I feel bad saying it now, but a gentleman by the name of Mick West. Have you heard of this guy? Do you know who he is?
We've heard of Mick West before.
Okay, so Mick West apparently he's like the go-to guy to say something's not real, and his big criticism of my podcast. And like I think Jeremy Corbell brought up my podcast. You know what Jeremy Corbell said about my show, about my investigation? It's not helpful. Really, Jeremy, I appreciate your opinion about that, but I disagree. Well, Mick West was asked by a national publication, what do you think about this Scott Roeder and this UFO Vegas thing? And he's like, it's probably just a raccoon. So we've been kind of needling him online a little bit. Come on, Mick. You got to do better than as a raccoon. So I recently was having private messages, DMing Mr. Mick West on Twitter, and I said, Mick, I know you know about this case. Here's a copy of my expert report. I want to give you the opportunity to debunk it. Prove me wrong. And I sent a voice message. It was like, on Twitter you can send like a voice message.
Yeah.
So I sent him a voice message. It was like a minute long. I just introduced myself. I was very polite. And he just wrote back, not interested. Okay. So then I wrote back, how are you not interested? Isn't this... Actually, I'll read it to you. It's not private anymore because it's not... Listen, you guys, if you guys don't be afraid to private message me, and you'll know why after you read this series of messages. So he says, I'm not interested. And I said, why? Are you scared? Is somebody intimidating you? Please tell me why you are not interested in the UFO phenomenon. I'm telling you that I have scientific proof and you need to review it. I'm going to give you another opportunity to think about it. So think about it seriously. Why don't you take 24 hours and get back to me tomorrow? This was like on Friday. And I think and I really think you should consider this. And he wrote back and he said, no, I'm sure you can find someone else who is interested. So now he said no twice. Okay.
Right.
I'm going for three times a no. So then I said, okay, let me make you an offer. I will pay you $5,000 to give me a fair review of my expert report. You can either keep the money or you can donate it to charity. I don't care. I'm serious with my offer. I'm interested in the truth. Prove me wrong. And then he writes back, sorry. I feel that would be perceived as me taking advantage of you. Also, there's the issue of legal complications if you are dissatisfied. And then I write back, nobody has ever taken advantage of me. I am a crime scene expert who testifies under oath for the most serious of matters. And it's not about me being dissatisfied. It's about you giving an honest assessment of the details of my 14-page report publicly.
This is a real back and forth you had with Mick West.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. There's your phone showing it on. Yeah.
And then I said, listen, I want you to prove me wrong. I agree with some of your analysis on some of the things that you work on. I'm not a UFO fanatic, nor am I an advocate in any way. I'm a crime scene legal expert, and I took this case on as a legal pursuit. And then I said, here's my offer. And I wrote this Saturday at 12:23 p.m. Saturday at 12:23 in the afternoon.
Okay.
And I said, my offer is open until Sunday night, October the 13th at 8 p.m.
And just for reference, we're recording this now. It's October 14th as we record this, the
Yes.
morning of October 14th.
That's right. So I said, my offer is open until Sunday. So I gave him until last night. And
Right.
he, and I'll let you, and to clarify, let me just read it. My offer is open until this Sunday night, October the 13th, 2024 at 8 p.m. To clarify, you either decline by no reply or reply. So you can either decline it by not replying or reply saying no thank you, or accept by reply to the following terms. 1. Agreement with to agree or disagree with each specific element of my report. Number 2, if you disagree, you must explain in detail. Number 3, this applies to each assertion of fact that I address on each page and in total and in detail with a final opinion to a degree of certainty which reflects your personal education, training, or experience.
Dang, you're hitting him with all the like intellectuals here. Good
Well,
stuff.
I mean, this is just how we do it in the legal field, right?
Yeah.
And then he did not reply. So this morning I said, thank you for your consideration. However, your refusal speaks loudly on your inability to address a real actual event, which leads me then to presume either you are deliberately ignoring it because you understand its significance, or you're myopic. I do not mean to insult you, but you put yourself out there as an expert in the field. However, you fail to address one of the most significant UFO encounters in the last 100 years. In any event, good luck and Godspeed.
Wow.
So there you have it.
And Mick West just kind of left you on red. He
No. He read it. He declined by no reply.
Right. Just left you sitting there. Okay.
No, he didn't leave me sitting there. He declined the offer.
Got you. Just, man.
Listen, I offered him $5,000. Listen, I was getting him five. Listen, I think he's in England. The exchange rate, he would have made, that's like 7,550 over there.
Ain't bad.
Our money's a little bit more. Maybe he must, I don't know. I thought that was a significant amount of money to offer him.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and it does speak volumes. His denial does speak volumes to at least dig into it. You would think somebody like that would jump at the chance to debunk this case, and he just ignores it. It's pretty thought provoking. I don't know.
Well, I think it's his silence speaks loudly.
Yeah, just like you wrote there. Okay. Well, if you have any updates on the Scott Roeder versus Mick West, you can let us know, because that's
hey man, that's like Muhammad Ali fighting a kid.
Oh man, he tried to mess with the legal Mr. Crime Scene. He tried to mess with Mr. Crime Scene, and that's what you get. Jumping back into the report here real quick, Scott, as we kind of near the end, and then I'll ask you some final questions here before we're done. I want to bring up one of the pictures, and the reason why I'm going to bring up one of the pictures in this report, and I believe, let me just take a look here before I bring it up on screen. This is on page 11. So for anybody following along, it's picture 2 on page 11. And I bring it up because I don't remember seeing this picture, and it's kind of startling. So this looks to me, as I bring it on video here, it looks like a giant praying mantis. Yeah. And that's striking to me because that obviously speaks to one of the species of NHI that a lot of people talk about, which is the mantoids, the mantis type of NHI. And that's literally looks like what I'm looking at here is a giant praying mantis staring at me in this picture, and it kind of gives me the chills. It's actually kind of frightening.
I told you I had a come to Jesus moment. And when you see a giant bug, listen, I think everybody out there. See, that's why this is an open source investigation, right? You can go to my YouTube channel, Scott Roeder at Crime Scene, Scott Roeder Crime Scene. You can go to my Twitter page, and you can download the original 4K video shot by Angel's mom.
Oh, good. I'm glad you said that because a lot of people
and you can download it in the same resolution that I got it, that I'm providing it to you. Yeah, I think Jim Quirk over at the Quirk Zone on YouTube is also providing a copy of it. I think there's a copy of it on my Twitter. There's a copy of it on my YouTube, where you can download the original video and find these things for yourself. I mean, we have expertise on kind of bringing out resolution and determining if there was any anomalies. The most important thing was the scientific community has concurred that this is an uncorrupted, unedited video. Hard stop. Which means the question is, what are we looking at? Yeah. Right? What is it? What is it? All of the evidence says this happened. It's real. Right? And if you go to the last part of the one thing I do want to make sure is that you allow me to read the last couple of paragraphs from my report as a summary on this case. But yeah, man, these are they could be giant bugs. The mantis beings are part of the UFO ology of the genus of different species. There are a lot of humanoid species. Even these bugs are humanoid in that they stand on 2 feet. And they got, they do their thing. The grays are humanoid, 2 arms, 2 legs, and, forward facing eyeballs. So yeah, giant bugs and little people, and, there's some supposed to look just like us, right? Now they're talking about walking among us, Richard Dolan, those guys. So I think it's interesting. And then you have shape-shifting ones in the UFO lore as well, which, are some kind of reptilians and things like that. So, there's probably as many kind of alien as there are kind of fish in the sea.
It's a good point. And, a lot of people have actually done independent work on this. I know they've messaged you, they messaged me, and they know who they are. So shout out to them. I know there's a lot of people who have spent hours, countless hours digging through that raw video that you mentioned, working with different programs, being able to highlight different, heat signatures and all these different things. And some of the evidence, some of the photos have been pretty compelling, just like, we've shown here and it's shown on social media before, and we're going to show it again when this report is out along with this episode. I mean, is there any indication of how many different figures? I know I've asked you this before.
In this one?
Yeah. Yeah, in this one video, on this one night, do we know how many at all? Like, when you spoke to Angel, did he give you any type of indication of how many figures, how many beings might have been in the backyard that night?
He's on the record saying that when they went back inside to wait for the police to come, they heard hundreds of footsteps.
Oh, gosh.
I think myself, I think I've identified at least 3 different kinds of beings by their appearance of what we capture and the sizes of them.
This would be unlike any other sighting or close encounter experience ever. Like, we have to realize that. We've never had an experience. There's only one story that comes to mind, and this is 1940s England. And I forget the exact details and the names, but there was 1940s England, a very odd story that I actually did an episode on, I think at the end of 2023, where this guy who was an old man once he did the interview, but for years he spoke about this experience he had as a little boy, where they came across a crashed UFO in like an alleyway in I forget what town it was in England. So again, some of the particulars escape me. I did this case a year ago, but they talk about this where they had a Nordic-like type of alien come out. So like, the human type, blonde hair, that type of NHI. They had a gray. They had something that resembled Bigfoot. It was like they had a pale alien. So that's the only other It's a wild case. I'm telling you, if no one's ever heard that episode, I
That
think I
sounds
put it out.
great. I want to go look that up.
Oh my gosh, I think I put it out last December,
Yeah.
December 23, if I remember correctly. It was like bizarre experiences or something like that, or bizarre encounters. And that's the only other story I can think about that would even touch this scenario where we're talking about different types of NHI in one setting.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
I
just,
don't know. I mean, what about the Whitley Strieber case? In Whitley Strieber's
well,
case, there was like there were like the tall grays, and then the little guys, and there were like those little like bush guys, like out of Star Wars, the Ewoks or whatever. It's good. I kind of feel like, they all have like a different purpose. But obviously they're working together. I saw recently. What it reminds me of is I think the scientific community has come to the conclusion that the octopus is a alien, that a frozen octopus came here on a meteor, a comet, crashed into the ocean, whatever, heated up, and then we got octopus, right? But the octopus is a very interesting animal because it's got a brain in every limb, right? It's got 8 brains. It can turn itself into anything. It's a shapeshifter. It's highly intelligent. They're social. They can have relationships with humans. They're almost a spiritual kind of a creature. But I recently saw, and I think it was released on the Nature Channel, it was an octopus that was fishing with a group of different kinds of fish. So the octopus got together with these fish, and they would go hunting. And if one of the fish wasn't doing its job, the octopus would punch it to get it back in line to do its job. That's what it kind of reminds me of that.
The octopus is like a bully. He's like his drill.
Well, he's just in charge,
Yeah.
He didn't kill the fish. He's like, hey, you're not doing your job. You're supposed to be on the left flank. What are you doing? I mean, that's how like the guy reminded me. He said like the octopus.
Just clocking fish around him.
Yeah, he's just keeping his staff in line.
Man, well, outside of the octopus, I guess we'll get you out of here on this, Scott, is the final report, right? We've gone over the details, some of the new things that we found out where you spoke to Angel and you still haven't been able to attain the body cam footage from Vegas PD, even though we're trying, which is pretty wild that they're not giving it to you. But to kind of jump here to the final conclusions of your report, and I'm going to bring that on the screen here now in the video end. I'm going to let you take it from here. What are your final conclusions, you, Scott Roeder, on the Vegas aliens case?
Okay, I'm going to read it straight up from the report because I think it's important that we summarize what's real, what's not real, and what the limit of my scope is and what I'm asking the community to do. So, more significantly, the evidence points to the presence of non-human intelligence. Whether these entities were composed of plasma, flesh and blood, or some other material, they were physically present and engaged with the Gomez family, otherwise known as the Kenmore family. This finding has profound implications. It suggests that, for one of the first times, we have direct, scientific, verifiable evidence of non-human intelligence visiting Earth. This development demands careful consideration as it opens the door to a new realm of understanding regarding extraterrestrial or otherwise anomalous phenomenon. I invite my work to be peer-reviewed and welcome critical examination from both the legal and scientific communities. Open debate, scrutiny, and collaboration are vital in a case of this magnitude. If any experts reach different conclusions, I encourage them to engage in a respectful dialogue. The ultimate goal is to better understand the nature of these encounters and what they can mean for humanity. The Kenmore backyard video, or the Gomez family backyard video, represents a compelling piece of evidence that should not be ignored. It has the potential to reshape our understanding of non-human intelligence and the broader universe. The analysis presented here is grounded in a degree of scientific certainty, but continued investigation and peer review are necessary to further solidify these findings and address any remaining questions. The Kenmore Gomez backyard video documenting potential non-human intelligence contains far more information that can be fully addressed in the scope of this report. The events captured on film go beyond conventional explanation challenge our understanding of what can be considered routine or explainable phenomenon. The visual and auditory evidence provided in the footage presents anomalies that warrant further scrutiny by experts across multiple disciplines. The behavior of the entities, the physical interactions with the environment, the atmospheric and mechanical effects recorded suggest that this is not a typical encounter. This case demands rigorous investigation not only from the perspective of a forensic video analysis, but also from experts in the field of physics, biology, and other extraterrestrial studies. It would be wise to include historians like Richard Dolan and philosophers and physicists. When considering the potential significance of this case, it is important for members of the legal, scientific, and governmental communities to engage in a serious discussion and collaboration. The implications of such phenomena extend far beyond the scope of any one individual expertise, requiring a interdisciplinary approach to understand the full extent of what has been captured. Transparent, peer review, and open source investigation will be essential to ensure that all aspects of this case are thoroughly examined. While this report offers a detailed analysis based on the available evidence, it is clear that we are only scratching the surface of what is an unprecedented event. The clear and convincing evidence of non-human intelligence interacting with the Kenmore Gomez family introduces questions that go beyond the immediate and intermediate scope of this forensic analysis, raising broader concerns about how we approach, verify, and respond to such encounters. And in conclusion, the Kenmore Gomez case represents compelling evidence that deserves attention to the broader investigative and scientific communities. While I am confident in the authenticity of the video and my analysis thus far, continued collaboration and scrutiny will be essential to fully understand the nature of the phenomenon recorded in Las Vegas on May 1st, 2023.
Well done, sir. Congratulations. It's been quite the investigation, and you spent over a year on it, I believe, and it's been quite a ride, that's for sure.
And I want to do a shout out, a couple of things. I want to dedicate this report to my grandson, Dietrich. Welcome to the world, Dietz. I love you. And also, I love you, my son, Eric, and Evan, and Michaela. Also, I want everybody out there to follow me at Scott Roeder, CSTM on Twitter. Get me some followers. We need some people to see this report, and we need to elicit a response. Please be respectful. Please be loving. I'm not looking to poke anybody. I'm not looking to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want to war with anybody. So please be loving in your message out there when you're trying to get the word out.
You heard him. Follow him there. You know how to find him. And I'll, of course, put all this out as well. The entire episode, along with the report, will come out so everybody can follow along. And, of course, always make your own conclusions. That's what we advocate for here on UAP, and I know you do as well, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Before we're done, last question, and I know you got to go. You being, of course, the crime scene reconstruction expert, you've been in many court settings throughout your 30-year career. If this came to a court and you had to present the evidence that we've talked about here today, or even just over the past 3 episodes, including this one, do you feel like you would be comfortable enough to take this into a courtroom and present this in a court of law to say something happened here and I have all the evidence in front of me to say that it did?
Absolutely.
Well, that's can't get much more definitive than that. That's something. Scott, thank you so much. Any final words before we go?
Yeah, Australia. I'm going to be there in a couple of weeks. And after that, I'm going to Japan. And arigato.
Nice. Scott Roeder, crime scene reconstruction expert, has worked on this Las Vegas case for over a year. Thank you so much for doing this, for putting this out here on UAP for the first time. And we'll keep up if anything else does come up. If we have to reopen things, we get the the body cam video, whatever happens. But for now, this is where we're at. Thanks so much for doing this, Scott.
Thank you, Steve.